Over 4 series, the Blackadder family have fumbled their way through history. The latest conniving kinsman is desperate to flee the trenches.
I'm going to have to desert, and I'm going to do it right now.
And escape the commands of a totally incompetent general.
What have we here? Name?
Permission to speak?
Baldrick, sir.
Oh, tally-ho, yibbity-dap and zing-zang spillet. Looking forward to bullying off for the final chucker?
Permission to speak? Answer the General, Baldrick.
I can't answer him, sir. I don't know what he's talking about.
Are you looking forward to the big push?
No, sir, I'm absolutely terrified.
The healthy humour of the honest Tommy.
The Melchett in Series 4 was a very different character to the one in 2. He was much more aggressive, much more insane, much more powerful. He was really, for almost the entire series, the source of power. And he represents the absolute insanity of the war.
Our battles are directed, sir.
Well, of course they are, Blackadder, directed according to the grand plan.
With a plan to continue with total slaughter until everyone's dead except Field Marshal Haig, Lady Haig, and their tortoise, Alan.
Great Scott! Even you know it!
With Stephen playing General Melchett, he had this madness in the character, and so he started to develop the madness. And that sometimes just came out as being extraneous noises that he would put on at the end of a sequence. So he'd say, right, off we go, Blackadder. And then that would be off. And he'd move out. And you think, what was that?
And it was done as much as anything to amuse Rowan Hugh, to this rather bizarre way of speaking, and of barking, so that you knew he was coming just because you heard a meh noise somewhere in the background.
Ah, Blackadder, so you escaped.
Yes, sir.
Bravo. Don't slouch, darling.
I was wondering whether, having been tortured by the most vicious sadist in the German army, I might be allowed a week's leave to recuperate, sir.
Excellent idea. Your commanding officer would have to be stark raving mad to refuse you.
Well, you are my commanding officer.
Well?
Can I have a week's leave to recuperate, sir?
Certainly not.
Thank you, sir.
One of the things I gave him, this sounds like ridiculous, but was the idea that he had piles, so that every time I sat down, it was going, ah!
Right. Oh! Ah.
And I would try and make Rowan laugh by sometimes sitting down like that and going, like that, and only Rowan knew it's because I had these apparent piles.
Oh! Ah. So, any news of the spy, Blackadder?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. The Germans seem to know every move we make. I had a letter from Jerry yesterday. It said, isn't it about time you changed your shirts, walrus face?
Even though we, of course, were the same age or very often older than the characters we were playing, slightly older, Stephen seemed to be more like more like Melchett than the real Melchett ever could be. He just physically carried off that sort of wine-soaked, barking fascist more convincingly than a real wine-soaked barking fascist could ever do.
The court is now in session. General Sir Anthony Cecil Hogmanay Melchett in the chair. The case before us is that of the Crown versus Captain Edmund Blackadder, the Flanders pigeon murderer.
My favourite episode was probably the court-martial episode, Corporal Punishment, for all kinds of reasons. Personal ones, it was one of the best ones to play Melchett in. He had the full range of shuddering emotions. The Lear-like, I like to think, response to the death of his favourite pigeon, Speckled Jim.
General, did you own a lovely, plump, speckly pigeon called Speckled Jim, which you hand-reared from a chick and which was your only childhood friend?
Yes, I did.
And did Captain Blackadder shoot the aforementioned pigeon?
Yes, he did.
Can you see Captain Blackadder anywhere in this courtroom?
That's him! That's the man!
No more questions, sir.
Splendid, excellent, first class.
Aiding General Melchett is the pencil-pushing staff officer, Captain Darling.
What do you want, darling?
The reincarnation of Percy as Kevin Darling was masterful.
The whole idea of doing the 4th series, it took a great deal of thought, as far as I was concerned, but doing Darling was a kind of a way of hoping people might forget a little bit about Percy.
Come Come on, darling, just give me an application form.
It's out of the question. This is simply a ruse to waste 5 months of training, after which you'll claim you can't fly after all because it makes your ears go pop. Come on, I wasn't born yesterday, Blackadder.
More's the pity, we could have started your personality from scratch.
To play Darling, who hated Blackadder and throughout the series wanted him to go on the front line and be killed, it's quite extreme. Love when he was in a position to mock and ridicule him was great.
Good luck, Blackadder.
Well, thank you, darling. And what's your big job here today? Straightening chairs?
No. In fact, I'm appearing for the prosecution. I wouldn't raise your hopes too much. You're guilty as hell. You haven't got a chance.
Why, thank you, darling. And I hope your mother dies in a freak yachting accident.
One thing I always give credit for is, as far as I recall, it was Stephen who came up with the name Darling, which I think is one of the truly great Blackadder jokes.
Next to me, darling.
Thank you, sir.
I can remember the very first read-through of the first episode of the last series, Blackadder 4. Tim was a bit distressed because his character seemed to be nothing. He was called Cartwright, and I suggested, in a rare moment of brilliance, that maybe he should have a name that was a constant torment to him. For the next 3 days, his name was changed to Darling, and we all, fell about.
How dare you, darling?
And then I remember we actually had a vote and said, look, is this Darling joke going to run very dry, and is it going to seem really embarrassing after the 3rd episode, or will it sustain? And Tim said, no, please let me keep it. Because Tim, being the wonderful actor he is, he knew how to play someone who all his life had been called Darling in a sarcastic way.
We thought the name Darling was funny, but it really didn't occur to us that people would pick it up in the way that they did, which is very stupid of us, obviously. But the idea that in every single scene, whenever Melchett called me Darling, that there was a double entendre there. We just thought it was a silly, embarrassing name. We didn't realise what it would mean for the other character.
What is the matter with you today, darling? I'm so sorry, Blackadder. Come on, darling, we're leaving.
The fact that Tim was able to play a sort of annoyance at his own name. He sort of twitched at the use of his own name as if it's still, it was a dagger in his ribs.
The twitch stayed with me for months, actually. It was really difficult. I mean, I did actually get quite scared that it was never going to go.
I'll deal with this, darling. Delicate touch needed, I fancy.
The scene when Melchett is getting ready for dinner with Georgina, who is, of course, Hugh Laurie anyway, and the whole misunderstanding of him practicing his speech to her and calling her darling, but at the same time I think he's talking to me, I think is brilliant. I think it's a fantastic piece of writing.
God, it's a spankingly beautiful world, and tonight's my night. I know exactly what I'll say to her. Darling.
Yes, sir? I don't know, sir.
Well, then butt in. I want to make you happy, darling.
Well, that's very kind of you, sir.
Will you kindly stop interrupting? If you don't listen, how can you tell me what you think? I want to make you happy, darling. I want to build a nest for your 10 tiny toes. I want to cover every inch of your gorgeous body in pepper and then sneeze all over you.
Really, sir? I must protest.
What is the matter with you, darling?
Well, it's just all so sudden, sir. I mean, the nest bit's fine, but the pepper business is definitely out.
How dare you tell me how I may or may not treat my beloved Georgina?
Georgina?
Yes, I'm working out what I want to say to her this evening.
Oh, yes, of course. Thank God.
All right?
Yes, sir, listening, sir.
Honestly, darling, you really are the most graceless, dim-witted bumpkin I ever met.
I don't think you should say that to us.
One of the things I love about Series 4 is that, strangely, I think Baldrick gained meaning. A fool and a butt the whole way through. But there was a remarkable thing I think happened right at the end of that series when he did suddenly seem to represent the working man.
We've been stuck here for 3 flipping years. We haven't moved. All my friends are dead. My pet spider, Sammy. Katie the worm. Bertie the bird. Everyone except Neville the fat hamster.
I'm afraid Neville bought it too, boy.
The Baldric is the hero, really, because wherever you go, every school or organisation, every company, every shop, whatever, has got a Baldric. They just loved that character.
Baldric, I love you.
There's such affection for Baldric. It's quite amazing.
I spy with my little eye something beginning with M. Oh, I say, well done, sir. Your turn.
I spy with my bored little eye something beginning with T.
Breakfast. What? My breakfast always begins with tea. Then I have a little sausage. Then an egg with some little soldiers.
I think Baldric has got stupider and stupider as the centuries have gone on. In the first series, he was actually the brightest out of Baldric, Percy, and Blackadder. And then he got a bit stupider, and now he's terminally stupid.
Right, my turn again. What starts with come here and ends with ow?
Don't know.
Come here.
Who would have thought that this smelly, turnip-loving sidekick would become the nation's favourite underdog? Even the armed forces fell for Baldric and Blackadder.
It does seem to be the case that the army, or at least an awful lot of people in the army, love the fourth series. And I think that's probably because it expresses a part of their experience which isn't allowed to be expressed.
You've got it! Well, if I've got it, you got it too now.
Blackadder was so funny because it reflected so many aspects of army life. So many of the words now have gone into sort of army vocabulary, and we use them on operations, for example. Wibble wobble. Cunning plan. We use them all the time. I used them all the time when I was in Bosnia or in Northern Ireland.
In the first Gulf War, many of the emplacements and headquarters buildings around Iraq were named after characters in Blackadder. There's the Melchett Lines and the Baldric Lines and so on. And somebody once told me that more than half the regimental goats in the British Army are now called Baldric. So that's rather an honour.
Right, so what do we do now?
Shall I do my war poem?
How hurt would you be if I gave the honest answer, which is, no, I'd rather French kiss a skunk.
So would I, sir.
All right, fire away, Baldric.
Hear the words I sing. War's a horrid thing. So I sing, sing, sing. Ding-a-ling-a-ling.
Bravo! Yes! Yes. Well, it started badly, and it tailed off a little in the middle, and the less said about the end, the better. But apart from that, excellent.
Oh, shall I do another one then, sir?
No, we wouldn't want to exhaust you.
No, don't worry, I could go on all night.
Not with a bayonet through your neck, you couldn't.
This one is called